Action. All right. Welcome back to the Pursue Vegas podcast. I'm your host, Dave Berlin.
And I'm your co-host, Tawny Wynn.
And every time I say I'm excited for today's guest, but this one has a very special place in my heart because we don't get to hang out as much in person. It's kind of like sometimes you have those friends that you met online and sometimes they stay online friends, but then you have those friends that you meet online and then they become your friends, but you only see each other like twice a year somehow. But this one goes way back, right? To a funny time, especially in this city. Vegas was very, very different pre-pandemic from where we are now. A lot of things have changed, but one thing that happened during pandemic was there was this phenomenal app that saved a lot of people's lives, I feel like. It was called Clubhouse, and as weird as it is now, like it's not really getting, like there's still people that do it. I think it's like the same like 25 people that really did it back in the Clubhouse days. But I met the incredible Danny J on Clubhouse. And it was just one of those conference call rooms where kind of a lot of speakers and authors and content creators found a home during pandemic when all of the real world events were shut down. So welcome, Danny J. Tell us about you. Tell us about what you're excited about.
Thank you.
And we'll dive in.
Well, I'm excited about being here. And Clubhouse, it's like blast from the past, even though it wasn't that long ago. I saw a meme maybe this week about how they can't believe the pandemic was 5 years ago, and yet it seemed like a decade ago. And also it seemed like a decade within a year. So it's just kind of trippy to remember back. But Vegas was so shut down. I was actually living in LA at the beginning of lockdown. And my partner and I drove to Vegas. My parents lived here. And we drove just to get a gun because we didn't know what was happening. Okay, truth be told.
And after that sentence, we're immediately best friends.
We watched Contagion, and then the pandemic happened, and we're like, we need weapons. So we drove to Vegas to my dad's house. We grabbed a gun from his gun safe, and then we drove back. But we stopped on the Strip just to see, and it was so wild to see.
So eerie, huh?
Shut down. Oh my gosh!
Last year in May,
and
too.
that like just made Contagion seem more real. It was like, we need this gun, right? We stopped in the desert on the way home, and we shot in the desert to practice. We were ready for the zombie apocalypse. So I guess what I'm most excited about is like that is gone. Thank God. I mean, it's just such a wild time to think back to and go, how did we live through that and think that? Because
half a decade of our life is gone.
Oh, I know. I feel like it's still a lot of my hot years. I'm like, that's really. But you know what? Funny enough, prior to pandemic, I was speaking full time, and because of the lockdowns, all those events got shut down, completely shut down. And a lot of people I knew who ran events, they had to redo the events in 2021 because they sold tickets in 2020. So they did them, but then they just stopped doing events. And so this year, I really want to try to get back into speaking and doing more events again. I think, and I've talked with some friends that like it's almost like a whole new group of people who are hosting. So I have to almost start from scratch. But that's something I'm kind of excited about.
Well, you have to or you get to. Like there's a really good advantage there. It has been unique because I remember because I was a speaker too. And it's interesting because as soon as that happened, I remember the first thing I thought was, does what I'm talking about and what I care about hold water and make sense in this new world? And same thing, drove down the Strip. I remember the very first Friday, no pun intended, but first Friday is a big deal here in Vegas. I remember the very first Friday after I drove down the Strip. And I played Last Friday Night by Katy Perry, and there was 0 people. Like, as far as the eye could see.
There's like some cop cars kind of like in the corner somewhere.
Right.
Yeah. But I feel like, too, for all of the speakers, not just in person, but virtual, all that stuff, everyone was kind of tested to say, does what I talk about still matter?
Yeah.
And does it still benefit the people of what we're all going through? So a lot of my stuff I was able to take on a virtual stage. I was talking a lot about networking, building relationships, and I had a kind of a canned presentation that I ended up doing virtually like 100 times. And it always brought a different level of value, but it also created this whole generation of people that found their voice.
Yes.
I launched a podcast during that time, and even though I only did like 28 episodes, some of those people are like the most impactful people of my life and my story. I still work with some of those people today, and it's been fascinating to see this new generation, one, get raised in this new sort of light. And because I also feel like it removed a lot of the gatekeepers, but it also removed a lot of the shady people too.
That's so true.
And I feel like it just kind of cut through straight to the truth of, are these people for real, or are they what is it, a fugazi?
Fugazi. What the hell is that? Is that a new word? Is that a new Gen Alpha slang? Because
it might be.
Sometimes when they talk, I don't know what the hell they're talking about.
Donnie Brasco?
No.
It's a fugazi. All right.
What's a fugazi?
Homework for both of you.
Oh my God.
There we go.
No, but speaking of networking and both of you being speakers, this is one of my favorite questions that Mike Kim, our favorite person, asked me on my show.
We ran out of time.
He was like, if you only know someone on Zoom or through an online connection, do you actually know them? And are you actually friends, right? Because you guys said you met through Clubhouse and a lot of these new world transactional relationships through LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram and all of that. Like, you have a lot of followers, you have a lot of mass around you, but kind of like my situation right now, I'm like, who are the 10 people I don't know the numbers to? I don't.
Yeah.
Right? So who
Tawny
are the...
lost her phone.
I lost my contacts, so I'm a Neanderthal right now, but...
It's so true. So I'm like, the fact that we met in person, I think that's why I love Dave so much. It's one of those things where I've been online full time since 2012, and I have made hundreds of friendships online, but the meeting in person tells you the truth. I met so many people where I was like, oh, we're going to be besties, and we meet in person, and they have been so fake. They have been just very, very different. They have a persona online, right? So there's like they're like acting, and then in real life, they're very, very different. And so I feel like the meeting in person is really what solidifies the friendship for me. Yeah. I mean, I've definitely been friends with people online for a long time, and then as soon as we met in person, I'm like, yeah, it's not a match anymore, if you will, like. Yeah.
Thank you, algorithm. Like, this is it.
Yes.
Like, and real life intuition or energy or something, right?
Totally. Yeah. And then some of my best friends I've met online. And we have they live in other states, and we just stay connected online, and we just, text each other or message each other, DM each other. And it's a real relationship. But it's not until that in-person meeting that it's solidified.
Yeah. Well, and I'm trying to figure it out, because I feel like we didn't meet for a while.
Yeah, I don't think so.
But what's funny is, it's one thing when you say like, oh, we met on Clubhouse, but we were literally within a mile of each other.
Yeah.
Because you were in Inspirata and I was in Inspirata. And Inspirata, if you don't, it's amazing how many people do not know what Inspirata is in this town, because it's like such its own little island.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
But it was perfect during pandemic, because we had like our own little grocery store out there, and it's just like, I wish somebody would try to come in our neighborhood.
But very contagion, I guess. Yeah. You're out in the wilderness by yourself.
Right.
But
maybe see the M like over there.
In the proximity of that, you'd be surprised how many people don't know where the M is. Like, some people are like, what's the M? It's like, it's a whole nother hotel. But yeah, in the same proximity, like, we were both way out on our own little island. So how you see and view Vegas is very different, because you do a lot of stuff online. So that's why I was really excited to have you on the show to really figure out, like, well, we know what brought you to Vegas now. You needed a gun. As do we all. So really, what's been your favorite stuff about doing what you do in Vegas, and how does that all parlay into, like, fit into your story?
Well, I'll back up a little bit about the bringing me a gun. My dad was born and raised here. And so he grew up in a ranch, and Vegas was very different 69 years ago when he was born. He grew up on the east side of town, which, like, is such a different side of town now. And I was born in the Bay Area, but I moved here when I was like a month old. So I grew up here. I went to high school here. I went to Cimarron, and I graduated from Las Vegas Academy. And then growing up here, I hated it. I was like, maybe everybody feels like this way about their hometown. Yeah. I don't want to live here. When I turn 18, I'm moving out. And so I traveled, and I went to a few places, and I was on my own for college. So I realized very quickly that out-of-state tuition was going to be very expensive, and UNLV I could afford. So I made this pact with myself that I realized I was at Lake Mead, and I was just hanging with my dog, and I was sitting there, and I go, what do I hate about Vegas? And I was like, it's just the summers. I hate the heat. And so I made a pact with myself that I went to UNLV, I would travel for the summers and then come back in the spring. So I started doing that for my 4 years of college. And then over time, actually, I went to England. I was in Europe for a while. It rained a ton. And I started to realize I actually like the heat and the desert.
Yeah.
So it was more of a like growing up, get me out of here. But as I went to new places and visit other places, I was like, I don't like cold. I don't like snow. I don't like rain. I actually think the desert is not so bad. And I feel like maybe a lot of people get to that place where like you hear that all the time. People complain about the heat and you're like, it's so bad. But when you go to other places and you deal with snow, you're going, maybe it's not so bad.
Yeah.
And for the most part, we're inside. We're not like hanging out in 118 degrees every day.
Yeah.
So I left in 2011 because the housing market crashed. A bunch of stuff happened. Moved out. And so I was basically gone for a decade. I came back in 2020 because my parents were here and my mom got sick, and that's why I really came back. Came for the gun, but we drove back to LA, and then a few months later,
that's such a good clickbait. That's like a YouTube thumbnail clickbait.
Come for the gun, stay for the family, stay for your mom.
That should be our new model.
We got
like
the
our
gun.
statewide.
Yeah, we grabbed the gun March 2020, and then we moved here October 2020. So it was just like 6 months of having the gun and came back. But yeah, so I stayed, and that decade away, it changed a lot. Yeah. I will say the early 2010s of Vegas was depressing. The economy hit here really, really hard. There was the housing bubble that burst. Phoenix was hit really hard and Vegas was hit really hard. Two of the hardest hit in the country. I was one of the people who foreclosed on our home. We lost it. Like we were in that situation and it sucked really bad. And there was a time City Center was being built, the Cosmo was being built, and then they just stopped working on them for a number of years. So there were these half-built buildings. People were losing their jobs. People were losing their homes. I was a personal trainer at the time, and 80-90% of my clients were like, we're not paying our mortgage. And they would live in their house for free for 2 years because the banks were overloaded. And so they were paying for personal training because they're like, we're not paying our mortgage. So it was great for a while.
Wow.
And then once their houses started getting taken away, they quit working with me. So suddenly I was not having money. So I'm sharing all that to say that I've seen such a crazy, such crazy changes. So I left 2011, came back basically 2021, so a decade away. And in the middle, I want to say 2017, 18, I started to come back here for conferences and speaking. And that was the time I got to actually do Vegas. Because when you grow up here, you don't really go to the Strip. You don't do all that stuff. But this time I was coming to conferences. I was going to stay on the Strip. And I was like, oh, this is kind of a fun city. Yeah. So it was a different side that I got to see as a visitor versus a resident. And then when I came back in 2021, I had a new appreciation. And I don't know why, I just love the Raiders Stadium, like seeing that go up, T-Mobile. The nights made such a big difference in the morale of the city. So this time back, if you had asked me 10 years ago, I'd been like, I hate Vegas, I don't care, it's trash. And it was super depressing. And I think that a lot of new things have come around and have made it really cool and exciting. And because I work from home, it's tricky because I don't go out. I don't see a lot of people. But what's been nice about like circling back to all these online friends, people are always coming here. I can't tell you how many times a week, hey, I'm going to be in town for this concert. Or, hey, I'm going to be in town for a conference. Or, hey, I'm going to be in town for a bachelorette party. So I'm always seeing people. And it's so convenient to be able to go drive down. I literally yesterday had friends in town for the biohacking conference. I went to Cosmo for dinner last night, right before we went to the breathwork. And it's so beautiful because like some of my best friends live in like Arkansas, Montana. Am I going to go there? Likely not, like ever. But are they going to come to Vegas? Almost definitely. Someone's coming to Vegas for something.
Yeah, once a year
yes, at least. A conference, an event, a concert, like something. Yeah. So the fact that I have so many friends online from all over the world and they come here, I get to meet them in person and like secure that relationship. But I've like hardly been to any hometowns of those people. Yeah. So it's such a great place. And I always also say it's such a great place to get away from because if you hate the heat, the beach is 4 hours away. You know, like Utah mountains are 2 hours away. I spent most of October, November in Utah. I would go through the week and then come back home on the weekends. Yeah. But I love the nature here. Yeah. And it's a great place to live, to have actually for my job, it's almost perfect because I work online. It could be very isolating and lonely. And so it's great to be able to have people come in and visit and have an excuse. Although it gets expensive, but
I was going to say, so it's fun. It's fun that you mentioned that because yes, there are people that come through here, but sometimes leaving is fun. Yeah, some things are just a drive away. Yeah. But even I spoke at retirement ceremony for somebody in the Navy, and they were in Memphis. The round trip ticket was like $120.
Oh, yeah.
And you could just get out of here. And it's fun when you leave. Like when you're leaving Las Vegas, everyone's like bummed out and broke and hung over on the plane. But when you're coming home, everyone's like pumped
You're drunk, excited. Yeah.
Sometimes
the
they do
best
like freaking
plane.
drinks. Yeah. So it's fun, just the travel thing. And then I love what you said. Because, there's lots of people that come in, and I even started this in Clubhouse, and I think it's still even on my bio on Clubhouse. If you're coming to Vegas, I'll pick you up at the airport if I can.
Yeah.
Right? I won't like block my whole day to just leave open to go pick people up. But if I can, I like to pick people up or drop them off. Or if I can hang out with them while they're here, that's great, but you just never know. Sometimes people have been less than a mile away and like schedules just don't match up and you can't see them. But for the times that you can, it's always great.
That's such a good point too. We have a great airport. It's very easy to get in and out of. I was living in LA for a couple of years, and LAX is awful to get in and out of.
The worst.
It's like you don't want to inconvenience someone to pick you up at the airport. You're like, I'll figure out a ride. But
that shows you who your real friends are.
Yes,
like, even if you offer them money, they're probably
so
like,
true.
no, you know what? You should Uber.
Yeah.
Like, can you fly out of Long Beach?
Exactly.
I'll take you to Long Beach.
Yeah. I was going to call it McCarran. I forgot it changed. But Harry Reid is really easy, and it's so close. Like, that's really nice of you too, because it's like if you fly in and you're staying at a hotel, you can pick them up and take them to the hotel really quickly.
Yeah.
It's not far away.
Yeah.
So
it's always nice to have a familiar face.
Yeah.
Even if you haven't met in person.
Totally.
It's like it's just nice. It feels like you belong here.
Yeah.
And that's always been my thing is I'm a transplant. You know, I drove out here in a rental car one way, but Vegas has given me so much to care about, and like I just want that like same little feeling for everyone, even if it's just a ride from the airport.
When I left here the first time, I would have said something so different about it, because one of the things on the negative side, I guess, is that because people have such different schedules here, like they're bartenders, they work nights and whatever, the house I lived in, I never knew my neighbors, because they would drive in, shut their garage behind them. I didn't even know, like, if there was a cop lineup, they're like, hey, there was a crime. Which one of these is your neighbors? I don't even know what they look like. I don't even know. And I lived in that house for about 5 years. Yeah. And so I was
actually your neighbor the whole time. We lived right next to
Surprise.
Yeah. So I felt like Vegas was very unfriendly at the time. And that was, again, early 2000s. And in a way, and maybe that was partially my fault. Like, I didn't go knock and see. And maybe because I grew up here, it's like you don't feel the need. When maybe you're a transplant, you're like, hey, I need friends. You need friends. We're both transplants. Let's make friends. But I definitely have seen, at least I've felt, that people have become more friendly, more neighborly, more open to like finding out who their neighbors are, talking to them. Where I feel like growing up, it wasn't as friendly. Yeah. And I think that really makes a difference. People will leave a place if they don't feel like it's friendly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I think that's what, there's so many apps and so many things out there that take away the human element of everything, like dial in menus, all that stuff, where it's just like in AI, that I don't even want to get on that whole thing, but there's like there's so much that removes the human element, but like we're all humans and we crave that sort of connection, community, which we found in stuff like the Wolf Pack. Shout out to Tori Gordon, friend of the show, but everyone's like all these circles kind of connect and intersect, so it's been a cool thing.
No, like the way you describe talking to your neighbors and stuff is the LAOC way, because I grew up in Orange County and it was the same way. Like during the pandemic, I wanted to get the hell out of Orange County. I don't know why, but it was just the bubble, like you can't grow. When I came here, that's the only misconception I had. I was like, oh, it's hot as balls, but I've only been here to party, like when I was younger. But it was funny because the two places that I almost moved to for grad school was Chicago and Seattle, which is the most cold and depressing places. And then I went there. I'm like, I don't know if I could live here like forever. And I'm like, what's the next thing that's the opposite from this thing? I'm like, I'm just gonna go like burn, I guess. And I came here and I had the same idea. I'm like, oh my God. And then now 110 is like nothing. Like it doesn't faze me. And I'm just like, oh, like
you can just go inside.
And then I realized, building business business is so different than hospitality because back then I was out and about all the time. Now that we all work online in our home, I'm like, I love my home. Like, like please don't make me leave. And it's kind of like the opposite of the whole personal growth thing and getting out. And because it's really intentional when you go out and talk to people here. And it's not just because you're in proximity of people all the time. You know, so people are kind of like making friends by default. But now here is like, if we want to sit down and connect, we're like, hey, let's meet here, check out a local restaurant or coffee shop or one of our friends or something, support their business. Because a little goes a long way here in terms of hospitality and like the connections that you're able to make. And, you know, it became less transactional here. Because I can't tell you how many times, you know, you think now that someone wants to like have a cup of coffee with you, like they actually mean it. Versus, you know, the others, there is like 1 out of 10 times where immediately they'll try to sell you something. So I'll leave a little note. Like, remember I called you the other day? I'm like, guess what happens? But like, this is what we talk about because our business community is so small here that I'm just like, do you know this guy? Because this is what happened. And I just told him my whole lifestyle. I'm like, I went to coffee and like, you know. So it feels really connected here. And I just never felt that sense of like community. And I was the opposite when I moved here. I'm like, oh my God, I have no friends. I'm going to be depressed and I'm going to be hot. So it's, like,
it's all miserable. Well, it is interesting because it's a big city, but it's not. It's small still. Because you can still run into people you know from another side of town. People know each other, so it's still like a small town feel. There's a couple million people, but with the Strip, of course, there's way more people. But to be honest, it's still kind of a small town.
I was at an event last week. Right, I was at an event from I think it was 6 to 8. Yeah, it was 6 to 8 p.m. And I left a little bit early because I had to be at another event across town at 8 o'clock. And across town. It was like we were in, I want to say, Deep Green Valley on one and then Summerlin on the other side. And these people came up to me at that party and they were like, hey, were you just at this event? Like, we were sitting right behind you. People have said
we followed you here.
Right?
People have said it's like there's like 2 million people here and I know all 50.
Yes.
And it really does feel like that.
Yes, it's so true. It's so true. And I don't know. I think it's changed. I think it's gotten better. So I'm glad I went away for 10 years because it helped me have a little more perspective and appreciation of Vegas. I think we all get in that, like, the place we grow up, you kind of have some disdain for, like, I don't want to be here with these people. And then you have some more appreciation when you leave. But I have a lot more appreciation and just have noticed that there seems to be more community and seems to be more, like, building. And I give a lot of credit to Tony Hsieh. I grew up, the high school I went to was downtown. I went to Las Vegas Academy. That was downtown. And it was a nightmare down there. Prostitutes, drugs. It was really bad. You would not be wanting to walk on the streets.
Before you had your gun?
Yes.
This is probably why you got your gun.
And I left and I came back and I remember going downtown and I was like, why does this look so cool down here? Like, everything has changed. It got nice. And I remember telling my friends, boyfriend, anybody, I'm like, you have no idea. It was so bad. You couldn't go down here. And he put so much money and revitalization into it. And I think community and culture, I think that made such a big difference in Vegas as a whole. And I don't know if people who didn't know what it was like before can really understand the impact of what that did. And I know a lot of people don't go downtown. They don't like downtown. But for me, growing up there, it was mind-blowing to me of what he did to downtown.
Yeah. And gosh, that hits the heartstrings so hard. I moved here because of Tony. I read his book. It changed my life. It changed the way I look at business. I've helped a lot of businesses grow because of his book. And we took a tour in 2015. We went to Zappos. We came out for EDC. We took a tour at Zappos. And it's just like that changed everything. We wanted to come work here for 2.5 years. That was like my whole like focus. We made a video, all that stuff. And like to see that sort of that energy still carry over. Because when I first moved here, I moved downtown. Like, and I know I can only imagine what it was like before, but like even still, like just coming out here in a rental car one way and like just planting there, like it all worked out. Like I met so many cool people. There's a lot of that same energy that's sort of left over. And that's kind of the spirit of this show is like we wanted to make sure that we show people the real parts of Vegas that most people might overlook or just maybe have a different perception of. So I'm really glad that you shared that and that you've seen it as somebody who left and came back.
It's not just Encore Beach Club. And what's the other?
Yeah. My favorite, when I have guests visit and they're like, where should we go? I go, look, I know you're going to want to see the Strip, go see the fountains, but go downtown. Yeah. I think it's fun. I think Fremont Street is fun. I think the food down there is great. The drinks are cheaper. There's always something. I love downtown. And I can tell you, like, it was not the place you ever would go. Ever.
Yeah. And there's still some parts down there that you don't want to go.
You should probably bring a gun and not go out after like 10 p.m. But no, that's a culture shock too. The ceiling is what trips me off.
Yeah.
It's like being so familiar with, like MGMs and the smell of it because they pump like perfumes and still it just stimulates your mind of like, oh, this smells like Vegas and my walk of shame like 8 years ago when I was hungover, barefoot over there.
Right.
Or Resort World or the sound.
Some cannabis.
Yeah, but when you go into the downtown, like the Four Queens or whatever, it's like smaller. And what trips me off is one of the gold hotels. I forget which one right now.
Probably Nugget.
Like when you walk in, the ceiling's like right here.
Yeah,
and I'm not familiar with that because even like the Orleans stuff, it has high ceilings.
Yeah.
So like just the depth perception just threw me off because I'm like, I feel like a giant walking in here. Like I am so big,
Yeah.
Versus other hotels, you feel like you are nothing because you walk in and it's
so
like a vast of people.
Yeah.
And you're like, like someone with the social anxiety and you're like, oh my God, okay, like I need to get here. And you just want to like, just go directly to where you need to go. Yeah. But the other ones, you're like, oh, you walk around, you're like, oh, this is it. I can go to the next one.
Yeah. I really love Circa downtown. Like, it's, to me, it's like the Cosmo of downtown. That's what I kind of call it. It's like the more upscale. Love Circa. But I always like the downtown Grand. And I don't know, that's really like the place I like to go when we have people in town.
Yeah. Well, so this is kind of a fun segue into this too, because I've found this out. When I've worked with so many different businesses, I want to dive into a little bit about what you do because you've said a couple times that you work online, and that gives you kind of a different perspective of the city. But what would you say you do here? I'm just kidding. No, more like I guess what are you excited about? How did you get into all the stuff that you're doing?
Yeah.
And how does that parlay into the city?
Well, I've worked online for 12 years. So I was a personal trainer here in Vegas. I've worked at a private studio in Summerlin. And early like social media started, MySpace, and I started posting like fitness stuff. And then I hired a personal trainer who actually was from Orange County, and he trained me online. And I go, oh, this is fascinating. I could do this too. So I basically just copied his model, what he did with me. I was like, hey, I'm an online trainer now. Just kind of took his rates, what he did with me, and just passed it on. I was like, I could do this. So I started training online. And again, this was right around when the bubble burst. So I moved, and I moved to a new state, and I didn't want to start training like from scratch with building a clientele in person. And I was with my husband, my ex-husband now, but we shared a car. And so I go, I'm going to have to make this online training thing work. So I started as an online personal trainer. And then I started having trainers ask me how to do what I was doing. So then I started teaching that. And then it was almost 50-50, like business coaching and training. And then pretty soon I just quit all my training, started doing more teaching, and then it parlayed into speaking. And with the pandemic, when that shifted and the events canceled, I luckily had so many skills online from teaching, building courses, that I started to build courses. And right now, it's funny because I've done so many different things online. I feel like if something got taken away, I'll figure out something else. Created an e-commerce business online. And right now I'm doing like wholesaling real estate, but it's all nationwide. And ironically, we've sold a number of properties and not a single one in Vegas.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
We started there.
We will talk after this.
Yeah. We started doing in Vegas. We were driving around, and then we just started doing nationwide. And I've met some real estate people here, and I need to do some stuff here because I know the market here. So it's kind of silly that I'm doing all nationwide. But so it's the reason I ended up back was my mom got sick. Came back to help her. And what was fantastic was like I had the flexibility to work wherever I want to work and live wherever I want to live. So that's been really great. And because I still, after the pandemic, was still speaking a little off and on, we were talking about the airport. It's a great place. If I'm being paid to travel to speak, I don't want to be living in a place that doesn't have good airport. I mean, there's direct flights nearly everywhere. Yeah. So if I'm paid to speak in New York, easy. There's a direct flight there. There's a direct flight to Austin. There's a direct flight to Chicago. I'm not taking a lot of connections living here. So even as a speaker in person stuff, it's great here. But as for online, it's just nice because I could be anywhere, and it's more affordable. I mean, it's definitely gotten more expensive. Like, I left LA, and I had like a studio for $1,800 a month, and at the time, you could get a 3-bedroom here for $1,800. Now that's not possible, but it's still relatively, if you compare it to some big cities, it's still relatively affordable. Yeah. So I'm like, I can manage that versus living in some of these big cities where, and you mentioned staying at your house, like you could get more for your money. So, maybe you're paying the same in rent, but you have a 1-bedroom versus a 4-bedroom. And you can have a little more space and a little more, like, you can actually park your car in a garage instead of leaving it on the street. And that makes me feel better, too.
Yeah, like, I actually know who my neighbors are. We, like, make eye contact because that's the opposite from Orange County. It's like you keep to yourself, you look down, you hope they don't rob you behind you. And that's kind of like the fear that you live in, that people think Orange County's all nice. I'm like, no, it's getting pretty bad. It's gotten bad since before the pandemic. And even in parts that we were in, like Fountain Valley and stuff, it's nice, supposedly, but that's that's targeted Summerlin here. Yeah. Once they think there's money or the perception of money, like it becomes like a magnet for certain like criminal activities, and just things slowly decline. In California, it just happens.
Like the coyotes are coming in.
Yeah. But
they're in our neighborhood.
And I tell the coyotes, I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm on your land, but just don't eat my chihuahua. Like, just take whatever you want, but like, this is my, so it's kind of funny. And I love like the energy that the people have here, because the mutual understanding and respect we have for one another, not in the business community, but just as friends, because we know each other like intimately and well, even just the depth of connection, that anytime he's like, oh, you got to meet this person, you already know it passes like 10 vibe checks before. Personality, just like character, I think weighs a lot more than like, I've never been introduced to a couple times that they're like, oh, you should meet this person, they have 100,000 followers. Like, that's never been the case here, because that shit like don't really carry anything unless you're targeting the influencer lifestyle. But for us, it's like we connect to one of another on that level, to just like, oh, like this person's fucking dope. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? And I think that kind of resonates with your energy, and like the authenticity that we have here is that we don't have to put on such a false like digital persona. So when you say like you love speaking, like what are some things that you love or passionate of like speaking about?
Lately, the irony is the thing I've been speaking about the most is starting over. And that really came about during the pandemic. And I feel like every single one of us has to start over in some capacity, whether it's divorce or death or a job loss or something just massively shifting, an injury and illness. And so that's been a big topic I've been talking about, and also just resilience and mental health for leaders. There's so many of us that are out there, and we have so many people leaning on us or counting on us, and just, or being like the strong one. And we don't always get to take care of ourselves or let other people see us struggle, because we feel like that'll make us look weak as a leader. And so I'm trying to share more about just being vulnerable with struggles. And it's just because you share doesn't make you weak. In fact, sharing, I think, makes you a lot stronger. It's very, very hard to share. And because of the pandemic, I think a lot of people really carried a heavy load. And so it's like reverberated, it happened 5 years ago, but it's almost now the unpacking of things. And so just sharing more about that. So those two things really is like starting over, and then just resilience and mental health for leaders.
Well, I knew this is why we're sitting in this room having the right conversation at the right time. Because me and Dave has been speaking on this topic of like, people think, like we talk about rock bottom and stuff, and we try to reframe it like, hey, it's a rebirth. It's an awakening to the life that we were living that we thought was fine, but it's not. So lately we've been talking a lot about that. It's not just business and all the fancy stuff that people see, but true connection happens through these types of conversation, because I think the online thing makes people less prone to being authentic. Like they use it as a buzzword, like, oh, how to create authenticity. I'm like, you be yourself. And I don't think people know what that is. You know what I mean? And I'm like, no, like your personal brand is not what your social media person create around what they think you should be. It's just who you are in real life, and that creates the ripple effect of how many handshakes or how many like text messages, that. If you skim through your inbox, like I think that's a huge shift since 2021, when I went through that rebirth and like, what the fuck is going on with my life?
Yeah.
And I was here, and then, you know, you look at your phone and everything's just empty and transactional. And I'm like, oh my God, like I don't have one person I can call and tell him or tell them how I'm feeling.
Yeah.
And because that like life stagnation, I was like spiritually broken. It's just, everything was just so bad. And I didn't have one friend.
Yeah.
And this is kind of like I don't know if you've seen the Batman movie. I don't know why,
All
but
of them.
like recently I just watched it, and there was one at the end with Riddler. He was like, what's really hard to come by, but like is worth more once you have it. Like Riddler's a fucked up character, but it's a friend because it's really hard. You know what I mean? Because that's true friendship is like, people, you know, it's easy to say quality over quantity, but like, how do you quantify what quality is nowadays, you know?
Totally.
Yeah.
And I love that topic too. And anyways, like we just went off on a fucking riff.
Yeah, I think relationships definitely matter when it comes down. And you mentioned this earlier too. You talked about you know, people online, and sometimes it's different when you meet people in person. Even people in person, like I've learned on that layer, there's people that are different on stage than they are behind the curtain. And to me, like I don't care about followers. I don't care about any of that stuff. I watched one of those little memes or whatever, and it was like, you know, I don't care who you voted for and all those things. Like to me, all that stuff doesn't matter. To me, it matters like how you treat people that are supposed to be the opposing opinions. Like how do you actually treat them? Like that says everything. And I've seen that because I've worked for big influencers. I've worked in their companies, and I've seen them on stage and I've seen them off stage. And yeah, I think that's the really interesting thing about but I'm also surprised too, more in this community, that a lot more people are very real. And like you mentioned, we were at a breathwork thing last night, and it's like the whole intersecting circle. And we talked about this in the conversation with like Tori Gordon. There in all places, Las Vegas, Sin City, there's like this big network of people that are really big on healing and trauma, and just really getting down to truth and communication and things like that. For you, as leaving and coming back, what are you really excited about in the next few years? You know, what do you see here in Las Vegas that gets you hyped?
Okay, so this is kind of off the rails, but what is his name? The guy coming in from Hollywood, Marky Mark.
Yeah, Mark Wahlberg. Do not let him call you Marky Mark. Like, don't let him hear you say Marky Mark. But yeah,
I'm excited about growth and expansion, and I like that he's bringing stuff here that makes people excited to come here.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
A restaurant.
Yeah, I'm excited about economic growth. I'm excited about things to do, because all of the things that I hated growing up here were like, it's boring, it's hot, there's nothing to do. You know, there was things, but it was more like it was the Santa Fe Hotel back in northwest side of town, and there was an ice skating rink and a bowling alley. Like, that wasn't really fantastic fun. But there's so many more fun things to do. And because of those things, more people come, more conferences, more events. That means I get to see more of my friends, because they're like, hey, I'm going to be in Vegas for this. So anything that brings more people here, not necessarily to live, because of course I don't want more traffic and all of that, but but that brings more people here that I get to see and hang out with. I love growth and expansion. I love entrepreneurship. And so those things are exciting, and, you know, new events and I don't know, like parties and things that are put on because there's a grand opening, like the Durango grand opening, and those things are just exciting.
Even when they blow things up, like there was a party for Tropicana at 2:30 in the morning.
Yeah, the Tropicana. I mean, those are cool things to be a part of.
Yeah.
So I feel like now it's being a part of something in the making, like not necessarily history, but like we're building something, and that feels really good. Where before it was just like it was just a different kind of town where just like, it's Vegas, people know what it is, it's Sin City. But now I feel as if, because like the circles, I feel like there's a building of community, there's building of like a spiritual community, and building new and big things. So like that's what gets me. Yeah.
Literal building.
Yeah.
Internal work
and
external things.
Yes, exactly that.
And we're in the infancy of it too. Like, you think everything is so developed now? No, like we're literally in the first like 10 years of it just happening.
I do feel like that.
It's crazy. Like we're a part of history and shit.
Well,
in 10 years, we're like, back in my day.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, when I moved here at the end of 2018, and I remember driving in, I drove in a rental car one way. And I remember this feeling like, okay, for some people it's LA. They like drive across the country and they go to LA because they want to make it, right? For me, it was the same sort of energy, but I could also feel people that were leaving this town, like throwing stuff out the window, like, F this place, I'm never coming back. What's been interesting about everything that you just said is I felt like I came here, 2018, just before the pandemic. I had just kind of got my, I'd hosted my first events at that point at the end of 2019. And I was really looking at 2020 as like, all right, here we go.
Yeah.
Of course, pandemic happens. But like I said, I feel like it kind of reset this whole community. And now, like you said, we're in the infancy of it. Like it's our turn.
Yeah.
What is it? The Goonies, like, it's our time.
Yeah.
It's our time.
down
here.
The ones like designed to make it and build something sustainable, not because we talk about lists a lot too, where they think it's just quick money and coming in and burning a bunch of bridges. And I'm like, no, this town will know.
Yeah.
Like there's blacklists in every single circle and you just want to pray that, you don't do anything outside of your character, because you will, like, people will know about you, not in the best way possible, but like we talk, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think you're right about like the infancy part too, is that before Vegas was really, it was like gaming and sex, strippers, right? Like that's
hookers and blow.
Yes. Yeah. And I think now it's like, it's art, it's tech, it's spirituality, it's dance, it's
real estate.
Yes. It's, there's so much that's just more, food. Yes. Entertainment, like, different shows and concerts that are here. I literally, was so funny. I just randomly, I like Shabuzi. He's like a country artist. And I was like, I want to go to Shabuzi concert. Type it in. He was in Vegas 2 days later. I was like, oh shoot, he's gonna be here on Wednesday. Yeah. Like I can literally think of any artist and then they're gonna be in Vegas at some time. I go, I'll just put it on my calendar. If I want to see someone, they're gonna be here. Yeah. So those are just exciting things for me. It's like, I don't have to travel to do that. Like I saw Taylor Swift here. That was amazing. And
Usher was just quad skating through the Venetian the other day. It's like,
you can be around when there's big things happening. And that's really cool. I mean, the Super Bowl was here. That was pretty epic, you know? So I'm excited about the building and just things that are up and coming and just newness and bringing industries here that weren't here before.
So this is this is kind of a rabbit trail, but it goes back to the city, but it also goes back to your brand and things like that. Like I know you work a lot online and you're speaking about different stuff and you've done a lot of different things. The fun thing about marketing in this town is I don't remember when I started using this, but I would give it as an example to people that have products or services or whatever when it comes to like trying to figure out who you are and like what your product or service is, who it serves. There's a fun joke, and it's like if you could have 2,500 square feet in any one of the hotels to have your own store and your own brand. And I know a lot of your stuff is online, but if that's where you had like a residency in a physical space, where would it be? And what's funny about that, I'll give you time to answer. What's funny about that is like if you look at anyone, like no matter what you say, if you say Cosmo, they've really designed the Cosmo around a certain type of person. And it's the same thing. It's like you gotta get the same feeling when you walk through the Wynn or Encore. They're the same hotel basically because it's the same kind of clientele that they cater to. But like I noticed these little things after walking all over this city. There's some hotels that have a Dunkin' Donuts and there's some that have a Starbucks. Yep. And there's some that don't even have a name. It's just a coffee shop and the espresso shots are $11 there because it's like you're walking into a different category of sort of human. So in that case for you, whether it be having your business there or any of that stuff, or if you could live in any hotel, like where would it be?
Well, it would be the Cosmo, although lately since, I haven't spent a lot of time at Circa.
Since the Cosmo got ghetto?
I know. It's no, the Cosmo is
shots fired.
I will say the last couple years it's gone downhill because I went there last night and I was
Too many chandelier pics.
Something. Yes. It used to be Cosmo was the place. And then my friends, but I feel like Resorts World is like the new vibe place or Fontainebleau is.
Durango.
I haven't been to Durango yet.
Take you.
Red Rock was back in the day, but I know I was gonna say Cosmo, but that would have been my 2018 answer. I don't know right now. Like I need to start to go to some of these spots. I went to Fontainebleau last week, and that was really nice and vibey. But I feel like everybody's hanging out at Resorts World lately. It's just a weird.
Yeah.
Like
it changes.
Maybe it's like the food court
thing.
concept or something because it brings people together and it's not too bougie.
Yeah.
Because I think the price points is where it separates a lot of the consumerism, right?
The reason I loved Cosmo, at least 2018 when I was going, had the dry bar, it had shopping, the chandelier bar with like their fun little secret drink. Secret drinks, their secret. They had the speakeasy. Like that was so fun.
Secret pizza is dope.
Yeah, like
it's not
secret
a secret
pizza.
anymore.
I loved the speakeasy with the donkey. They had fun drinks there. Beauty in Essex was always a place I loved to go, like the speakeasy vibe. And they even had the speakeasy barbershop downstairs. So that was the place that. But yeah, I don't know. The last few times I've been there, I've been a little bit turned off.
I have to give a shout out because I remember it was over a year I'd lived here and I didn't realize there's a Hattie B's in that food court up there. It's Nashville hot chicken.
Yes.
And I was like, I used to go there all the time.
But it wasn't there for a while. So maybe
like
that's why you didn't know.
Yeah.
I don't think it got there till 2020.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. I don't think they didn't have that food court for the first couple of years.
Food court is new.
Yeah.
The food hall or whatever they called it.
That's newer. The Hattie B's is newer.
Yeah, like the Uncommons didn't really make it just because it's all the way on the other side of town. And like, I feel like it's kind of like a ghost town because it was hot last year for a while. That all the restaurants came in, and now I walked it like a couple weeks ago, and I went there like everything's closed, and I'm like, what's going on?
Bummer.
I dig food courts because a lot of times if you're meeting with more than a couple of people, it's easy because you're just like, oh, we'll sit in the middle. You can go wherever you want.
Yeah.
And then that way everyone's just not like bound to one
free
place.
for all. Like go hunt for your own food.
Yes. Yeah. Go hunt.
I just can't stand the Resort World credit card system, like the kiosk thing sometimes.
Oh, because you order like separate, or you order? There's no
like
human
it was kind of too new for me, and sometimes even at the counter, like the human standing right there, yet I'm still like pressing a button. And like, don't get me started because someone they asked me a question. They're like, oh, if you haven't been serviced by a person, like the whole tip thing, because I was a bartender for a very long time in my 20s, and I lived off of tips for a period of times. And they're like, oh, now the coffee, the whole thing, they like it's like upcharged, and then they're like, do you want, like there's a service fee, there's a tip. They're like, how do you feel about that? I'm like, honestly, like I didn't know how to feel about it for a while, especially with the kiosk thing. I'm like, no one serves me.
No one's serving me. Who
but
am I
tipping? I believe in karma and like goodwill, and I'm like, I'm still like, I gotta put 20% because I don't want bad karma. But then I thought about it, and I'm like, oh my god, like 20% is like $17. I'm like,
shoot, I'm not tipping a kiosk. I'll tell you that right now. I don't care.
Well, and that's like a hot topic here, you know?
Yeah.
Well, it's funny, and they've gotten like all kind of coy about it. They're like, it's going to ask you some questions. And
I know, they turn it around. They do.
It's such an awkward thing. It's just like, oh, it's going to ask you a couple questions. And then they just look away.
The coffee shops are nicer to you. They're like, oh, like I love your shirt. And they're like, I was going to ask you a couple questions. I'm like,
I know. I started, like, I used to feel bad, and I started just zero every time now. I'm just like, I'm done with it. I can't. The price of everything has gone up. I'm like, sorry, I'm not paying $8 for eggs now, and we're not tipping on something that you didn't even bring to my table. If you're just handing it to me, I'm not tipping that.
Yeah, that's a huge thing because it is hospitality, and people live off of tips and not just to bring back like tax and all of that stuff. And it's just so crazy how everything that corporations are building, like it takes away from the people, and like other people have to come in and rescue other people because the corporations couldn't afford their wages. Like, what the hell is going on? You know?
Yeah. I just look at the human interaction of that, and I've noticed it every single time now. They just spin and look away.
They
give you a compliment right before.
They either do one or the other. They compliment. They're like, oh, your nails are pretty. I'm like, thank you. Zero tip. Like, this is awkward. Or they say it's going to ask you a question. They turn their head.
Keep eye contact.
What if you said it's going to ask you a question and you just look them right in the eyes?
Yeah, that's literally like maybe I'll be that person.
Yeah.
But no, that I think I went through the same phase where I love Cosmo. It's changed for me now. I have coffee every morning at the Wynn,
nice.
and I go and I do a double shot of espresso, and I just kind of hang out there in that vibe. Like I dig still most of my playlist from that little like grassy area that walks right next to it by the water fountain, and that's where I go for my morning walks. But it's a different kind of energy, a different kind of vibe. So when people are staying there, I'm like, yes, I will come to everything that you're doing.
And like Bellagio has its own too. That's its own vibe, and I mean every single one. You're really right. Yeah. It's just
they dialed in the marketing.
They
though, too.
have, yeah.
And it's like you can see and that's why some coffee. You know, there's one that has Pete's, but like it's really funny when you see the ones that have Dunkin' versus the one that have Starbucks versus the ones that just don't even.
You know what else
says, like,
too with
coffee.
the Cosmo that maybe that shifted for me is I stopped drinking 2 years ago, and then maybe the last 6 months I've had a couple of drinks, but it's not the same. Like I used to love Cosmo because I'd like to show off their flower drink at the bar,
Yep.
like
The numbing drink?
Yes.
Yeah.
So you bring your friends, or like, let me show you this drink because it's kind of fun,
Yeah.
and so those kind of things have shifted for me too. So you know when you're not going to drink, or then it makes the vibe a little different. So like a coffee shop will be a completely different vibe. Like I'm not going to go to Cosmo for coffee because they just have a Starbucks line. So you know that's I don't want to stand in a 10 deep line at Cosmo for coffee, but for drinks, you know, that was a different vibe.
Yeah. So it's interesting. So when I met Tawny, she had a show, and that's one of the things that really kind of compelled me about her show, which talked a lot about being sober. I'm coming up soon on a year, which
we're gonna buy you a drink. I'm just kidding.
Shout out to Low Tail,
Nice.
one of our favorites. Have you ever had these?
No.
He gets lit on these, man.
I get lit on these. So it's like, why am I drinking old fashioned at 10 o'clock in the morning? Corinne this is a mocktail brand.
Yeah.
And she came on the show, and I met her when I met like other people too. Like, this kind of goes back to the Hollywood stuff you were talking about, like with Mark Wahlberg coming here. There's a lot of people that from Hollywood that are coming over. I had met Andre Royo from The Wire, HBO The Wire. And when I learned that he was sober too, it was also kind of one of those things that there's just a lot of people that have come out and talked about sobriety. So for you said 2 years. For that, like, how does that, has that changed Vegas for you, or what do you see as Vegas in that sort of non-alcohol culture? Because it is here, like it's pretty like loud.
Like we're
and
sitting at this
appreciated
table,
here.
not knowing each.
It has changed Vegas for me for sure, because it definitely was more fun to go out and meet people for drinks. It's very expensive too, though. I do wish, and I feel like downtown, I found this more. There's a lot more mocktails and things like that. I wish that more casinos would have, and not just juice. Like a juice drink for $12. Yeah, because they have non-alcohol. They have NA beverages. Like they can take fake gin and make the same exact cocktail. They just don't do that. So that's something I wish would happen, and I'm sure it will eventually if there's enough or demand for it. Yeah. I know, like in San Francisco, there's a lot of bars that are NA bars, and they have great cocktails. So I would love to see that more. It definitely has shifted because there's a lot of you go out for drinks and you stay out. Like the Chandelier Bar was that for me. So it shifted a bit, but I think your friends know who you are, and I've found ways to just work around it. Like I had friends who were in town from Arkansas. I met them at the Chandelier Bar. I was like, hey, can you give me that flower drink without alcohol? And they did it for me. That was great. Still costs a lot of money, but
this is my question on that, because I've heard it both ways, and of course I work in the restaurant industry as well. We do a lot of consulting around numbers and all that stuff. When you see a drink that's $18 with alcohol, and then you see a mocktail that's $17 without the alcohol, I've heard, it still takes just as long to make it. It's like, but the main ingredient is like, you're calling it a $10 shot.
Yes.
Like, because I always look at that too. Like, if it's a $17 cocktail with the same 1 ounce or 2 ounce pour in it, how much is it for a shot? It's like $11.
Yeah.
And I'm like, now, again, I'm not saying that it should be half that, but I feel like just the same way that they do 2-for-1s or whatever, like happy hour, like there should always be that mocktail represented.
I think there should be more mocktails, and the pricing needs to be better. Like there was one I went to, I can't even remember where it was, but he goes, it's basically 7-Up. I'm like, so this is like $13 7-Up, Like, why don't I just get a 7-Up?
Paying for the ambiance.
Yes,
Yeah.
Like, because you're going to just throw a mint leaf in it? Come on.
Or when they say it takes the same amount of prep.
Yeah.
I get that. But make it $10 less. I'm still going to tip the bartender.
Totally.
Because, like, now I have a reason to. And, like, I'm spending money on drinks. Like, we have more money.
Yeah.
I did that on this, on the I Am Sober app or whatever. It says, how much do you spend on average? And at the time, I put, like, $25. Yeah. And it's like, here, as I get closer to a year, it's like $8,500 and something dollars is what I've saved. And I'm like, I'll still tip the bartender the same as I would. Yeah. And I tip well. But it's like, still, like, cut me that $11 slack.
I know. It does make me mad, especially if they're not using NA alcohol. If they're just using mixers and juices, I'm like, it's one thing if they do use some other fake alcohols, and I've rarely found that. There's been a few places where I see, like, there's a brand called Seedlip that they've used something like that, but I've bought some, and at my house I have those. But yeah, it bums me out, and I think it'll get better. Downtown, I went to it was like a pop-up NA bar, and so there were like cocktails, and that was really fun. A woman here, I forgot her name, but she did this this little downtown kind of thing, and you just went to have like drinks, and I think that's happening more. Yeah. It does seem more like a downtown versus strip thing, because the strip people are there for. Usually they're tourists, and
they came to get carried out.
Yeah, and they're tourists.
They want the wheelchair picture. You know?
Downtown is a mixture of tourists and locals, so I feel like that's why you'll see it more downtown.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Maybe we should throw that party.
Well, I bet we can. We have the technology. So for that, so there's a lot of things that have changed for a positive. What do you see as some of the challenges that, not just for you in, running online business, but like for people that maybe are looking at Las Vegas, and they have a different perception of it. Like, what do you still see as some of the challenges that you see in the next 3 or 4 years?
Yeah. Some of the challenges I see are just the same challenges as probably anywhere if you're moving here, is still trying to get out of your bubble and meet people. Because I think it still lands on you, because we can still have those neighbors who drive into their garage, shut the door, and you never see them, and you don't know who lives by you. And I think getting out of your bubble in general, because I live in Inspirada, and sometimes I don't go anywhere. And it's real. I mean, this happens in LA. This happens everywhere, where you have a friend on the other side of town. They're in Summerlin. You're in Henderson. You're like, I'm not going to drive over there, even though our traffic isn't bad. Everything is like 20, 30 minutes. But
Except for Inspirada.
It feels far.
Far.
Yeah, it feels far, so you don't leave your house.
Yeah.
So I think just the challenge is just, especially maybe an introvert, is like forcing yourself to get out and do things and to be open and be available. So that's not really a Vegas challenge per se. I think that's kind of anywhere you go. Yeah. And anytime you're in a new environment, you have to get out of your bubble and do that. But as far as Vegas in particular, I'm not sure I see, the bigger challenges, traffic and construction, and that has been my entire life. So I don't know if that's ever going to shift or change. Yep. And again, any city you go to that's growing, that has growth, is going to have those kind of things too. So, if you're going to want to whine and complain about, if you come from, Kansas and you've never had traffic, well, I'm sorry, but you live in a city, so there's going to be like this.
Go to LA first for perspective.
This still really isn't traffic.
So it's really just check your own expectations and also take the measuring stick against something that else is similar, because if you're measuring Las Vegas traffic to Kansas traffic, you're going to be disappointed. But if you're measuring it to LA, you're going to be like, this is amazing. So I think it's your perspective is going to shape and shift a lot of how you feel about it here. And that's for any place. I see this on Threads. People are like, I'm moving to Vegas. What do I need to know? And you'll see people that love it and they're saying all the good things, and people that hate it and all the things they're going to shit on. And usually the things they shit on are the heat. Yeah. Actually, that's just about it. They shit on the heat.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if you can get past the heat and realize that it's a short amount of time, we have beautiful weather the rest of the year, and that you're not sitting outside anyway, then it's not that bad. You can handle it.
Yeah.
So
and this year, more than any other year in the past, I took full advantage of. I became a straight up pool boy this year.
Yeah.
It's it's hot. I'm going to the pool. I work from the pool more often than I ever have.
This year was extremely brutal. It was definitely one of the worst. And I was like, ooh, this was pretty rough. But it's still now I'm sitting here November, December, it's 70 degrees. I'm like, okay, this is amazing.
Yeah.
So now we have a different set of complaints as introverts with the dark thing.
Yeah.
Because it's 4:30. I'm like, I'm shutting off my laptop. Yeah. Please don't try to contact me. Please don't make me leave the house.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So with that, then, if you could wave a magic wand, what's one thing that you really would love to see in Las Vegas? What do you think would really be the most positive thing that could happen?
If I can wave a magic wand, I would fix I-15 traffic,
right?
And 215 traffic. And you know what else I would do? I would have blown up Excalibur instead of Tropicana.
Whoa, dang.
These are fighting words.
Yeah, right?
I think it just looks so bad. It looks so terrible and janky, that old castle.
It's not even Circus.
I was like 8 years old when that was building, and I thought it was the coolest. And now I'm going, please tear that god awful eyesore down. That whole, even the pyramid, they could all knock that whole corner down and put something cool there. But yeah,
that's gonna open up a whole new like list of questions. Like, what's the next hotel they should blow?
Like, regardless of what people say, it's still McCarran and it's still the 515. Yeah. Like, I can't wrap my head around this 11 thing because they're like, I'm on the 11. I'm like, wait, what is the 11? Like,
yeah, and Google Maps doesn't even know that yet. Like, it's super weird.
So bizarre.
No, I think there's great truth in that. Thank you for sharing that. So as things move into what's next for you, right? What are you really excited about as far as the future goes?
Yeah, just getting into speaking. I actually, something I've had on my to-do list since the fall, and should have started in the fall, because I grew up here and I went to high school here. I actually got pregnant in high school, and I really wanted to not be a statistic. I remember the high school I went to had the highest teenage pregnancy rate in the entire country at the time. I don't know what it's like now, but I didn't want to be a dropout and like be a statistic, so to speak. And I feel like I've made something of myself. And really this year, because I didn't realize I was going to stay in Vegas. Once we came back in 2021, it wasn't a plan to stay. And since I've been staying, I feel like for me, it's time to give back. And I really want to go speak at a lot of high schools and share my story. Especially because kids who maybe growing up here are going through some of the same struggles that I had. And so I have this whole list of Clark County schools, and I want to reach out and start doing a little bit more give back to the schools here.
That's cool. That's cool. I share that same passion. I've started thinking about that a lot more lately as I kind of change and make some new decisions of where I'm going. I always look back where I came from.
Yeah.
I was at-risk youth.
Yep.
And I don't talk about this a whole lot, but after the Marine Corps, I was a drill instructor for at-risk youth for 7 years. And I was just pouring back into the kids that were, in a way, so much just like me.
Yep.
And it's interesting because you have a daughter, right? And how old's your daughter?
She's 27.
Okay, yeah, it goes by fast. My son just turned 20. But it's very interesting too, because I feel like just like for all of us, pandemic affected everyone very differently.
Yeah.
So at whatever stage they were at, whenever like I say, kids all the way from kindergarten to college were affected very differently. My son was 16, and that's very much affected his approach at work and like life and all that stuff. So it's really interesting to see that here and to know that you can speak into that. I'd be really excited to see when you get that started, because I know some other people that may be interested to speak in that network as well.
Yeah. I have a really good friend who's a school speaker, and I just, I guess I just didn't expect to stay here, so I didn't really put any feelers into it. And then I go, why am I not speaking here? Like, this is where I grew up. This is where I went to high school. I went to multiple schools here. I went to at least 7 different schools here. So I just feel like, and because I want to get back into speaking, I just feel like now's the time to reach out and just talk to where I went.
So speaking of speaking, friend of the show, Mike Kim. Sorry, Mike, we ran out of time. The joke is like, so when we started this show, I had found Tawny. She had interviewed one of our mutual friends, Mike Kim. Mike Kim's all about personal brand. My favorite thing about him is the quality of questions that he asks to help people find their truth. So when it comes to speaking for you, I think his questions are, what pisses you off, what breaks your heart, and what problem are you trying to solve? So I pose those questions to you, like what's the injustice in the world, what pisses you off, what problem are you trying to solve, or I'm sorry, what breaks your heart, like that sort of demographic you're talking about, kind of like early teenagers for that, speaking specifically, and then what's the problem that you would want to solve there? Yeah.
What pisses me off, I think, comes back to the mental health conversation, because I struggled for years with depression. I actually went to Charter Hospital here. It was like a behavioral health center, and it was on Rainbow and Spring Mountain. And, they put lots of kids in the system, and they drug them up, and they give, antidepressants. And I feel like, we went to breathwork last night. I feel like there's so many tools now that we can help our youth with mental health. And I still think there's a place for pharmaceuticals. I think you need to like do whatever it takes to stay here, to stay alive. But there are a lot of other tools, like our food is terrible. I think that adds to our mental health. I think social media, all of those things just kind of add to it. But we also, our children and adults aren't given tools to cope with trauma and anything like that. So I think what pisses me off is like there's this, for lack of a better word, a pandemic of like depression and anxiety for all of our youth and adults. And the solution is just a pharmaceutical that doesn't always work. And so I really want to help people find other ways, whether it's therapy, EMDR, breath work. I mean, there's so many modalities that help. And then what was the other pisses you off?
Yeah, breaks your heart.
Breaks
and then
my heart.
what problem are you trying to solve?
Yeah, and I think that, I mean, the thing that pisses me off is also the thing that breaks my heart. It's like, you know, seeing that. I remember this boy in Charter. I went there for depression and suicidal ideation, but there was a boy there. He was very like ADD, just kind of hyper. And I remember when he came in and he was fun. His name was Derek. And he was just kind of, you know, he was just movie. I don't know how to describe it, but he was just wiggling. And by the second day, he was just in a corner, like comatose.
Oh, like sedated.
And they had given him something. And I was like, it seemed like his soul was gone. Like who he was just a zombie. And seeing that was like, this is how we're gonna fix this. This is how we're gonna control this. We're just gonna like drug people and leave them there. So the same thing that pisses me off is really what also does break my heart. And what was the last one?
The problem that you're trying to solve.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess it's all together.
Yeah.
And that is a problem I'm trying to solve. Is helping people get more tools in their toolkit, and to know that also that they are the solution to their own healing.
Yeah.
And so I really believe that we have it within us to heal, but we also need to know what we don't know. Like the things I didn't know growing up, I didn't know what I didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't know there was breath work. I didn't know there was psychedelic therapy. I didn't know there was EMDR therapy. I didn't know there's so many types of therapies.
Books.
Right? And also, I didn't know that trauma was causing my issues. I thought it was a chemical imbalance, which has been, I mean, that's a whole other podcast about.
That'll be on
like
my podcast. I love this topic.
Yeah. So like that's a whole other conversation. So I'm just thinking I'm born defective, which is completely untrue.
Yeah.
And so learning about trauma and learning about how that affects the brain. And now I can go back and go, I can know when my depression started and why I reacted the way I did. And the pills just suppressed stuff. But until I finally was able to deal with it and process, that stayed with me for my lifetime until the last couple of years. So I really want to just speak more into that and make people feel like they're not alone, nothing's wrong with them. And two, that there are tools and there's things out there that they can do, that they don't have to look outside themselves. They don't have to be on a prescription for the rest of their life. I was told you're going to be on meds the rest of your life. And I was just supposed to accept that. And it's not true. You know, I'm not on meds anymore and I feel good. And I know that if I find myself slipping into old patterns, I have tools and people and community and ways that I can get back to center. And that's really beautiful and that's empowering. But that's not, you're not learning that in school. Yeah. You're not even learning that at your, counselors. And a lot of like school counselors, kids are sent to. And there's just a lot of, I don't want to say mismanagement. There's just a lot of misinformation and just a lot of not knowing. It's just like ignorance, Yeah.
No, and I think that's definitely one of the biggest, best kept secrets about Las Vegas is that there is community for that. There is information around that. There are people that are addressing that very issue, even right here in Sin City.
And it's more accessible than the whole LA culture of like the mass produced, mainstream culture to where it's just monetizing other people's defectiveness. Because, I was that kid at 11 that was put on meds. I'm like, because I don't want to sit here for 8 hours doing what I don't want to do. Like, I'm just not designed this way. I grew up on a farm. Like, I can't sit in this cold, hard, institutionalized structure. So when I tested in, 5th grade, I'm like, oh my God, am I stupid? Like, what's going on? But that's a whole other can of worms that we're going to have a follow-up conversation to that. So I just want to acknowledge you for just being vulnerable with us and really sharing like what we're about as a Pursue Vegas community and who we bring onto the show. It's the people that's actually doing the work ourselves, because internally it reflects the external, like the business, the lifestyle, and also the relationships that you have with other people. It's mainly a reflection and a mirror of how you treat yourself. And I got that wrong for so many years until the last couple of years too. So sometimes, you know, you kind of have to fall apart like a spicy taco to
Yeah.
put it back together. You know?
Sure.
And that's kind of where we're all at right now, you know?
Yeah.
So I just want to thank you for your time and, you know that Pursue Vegas connects with me and Dave always to like share, you know, resources and also like how do other people find you and how do we stay connected to you?
Yeah, I mostly on Instagram, DannyJ.com. It's DANNY like a boy, the letter J, and then I spelled DOTCOM.com. And I actually signed up to be the chapter head of Microdose Las Vegas, and I'm supposed to host events. I haven't hosted any yet, and that's actually something I should talk to y'all about later. But it actually is to bring about just talking about the mental health epidemic and crisis and just different ways to bring in different psychedelic medicines. So hopefully, I'll have some events here that I can actually meet more people in the community and do that. But yeah, Instagram is the best. I mean, I'm on Facebook and LinkedIn at DannyJ.com. Every place you can find me at DannyJ.com. Even if you go to my website, DannyJ.com. But Instagram. Even
MySpace.
Yes.
What about like Zynga?
Yeah. Venmo for sure. You can Venmo me. And Cash App. Yeah. So if you want to, buy me a coffee, they're $8 now.
Plus a tip.
Yeah.
It's going to ask you some questions.
It's going to ask you some questions. But my DMs are always open, so I'm happy to chat with people there.
Yeah. Very cool. Awesome.
Yeah. Don't look at me.
Well, that is definitely a wrap. Thank you so much for coming on the show, and we cannot wait to see about getting some events on the calendar.
Yeah, let's do it.
Stay tuned for part 2. Dun, dun, dun.